Flight 512 was like any other long-haul journey. Passengers settled in, luggage stowed, seatbelts clicked into place. The sun streamed through the cabin windows, casting golden light on rows of quietly chatting travelers. In row 18 sat Clara Monroe, a composed woman in her early 30s, reading quietly, earbuds in. To most, she was another ordinary passenger, traveling home after a business trip. Yet, beneath her calm exterior lay years of experience few could imagine. She had once worked as an aviation engineer, specializing in cockpit systems and emergency protocols, a skill she rarely mentioned outside of work. Today, she was simply another face in the cabin, sipping water and glancing occasionally at the safety card in front of her. Passengers were adjusting their blankets, reading, and scrolling through devices, unaware of the sky's hidden challenges awaiting them. As the plane leveled at cruising altitude, the engines hummed a steady, reassuring rhythm. Clara leaned back, closing her eyes, enjoying the brief peace. A child across the aisle laughed softly, and a young man dozed, headphones in. Everything seemed ordinary. Yet fate often arrives quietly, without warning. An hour into the flight, the cabin lights flickered briefly. A subtle vibration ran through the fuselage. The co-pilot glanced down at the instruments, brow furrowed. Then it happened. The autopilot disengaged abruptly. Warning lights flashed on the control panels, red and amber signals piercing the cockpit's dim interior. The captain's calm tone came over the intercom, but tension undercut his words. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing technical difficulties. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened." The passengers shifted nervously. Coffee cups wobbled, some tumbling to the floor. Clara's instincts kicked in immediately. Her hands gripped the armrests as she studied the flickering lights. She remembered the protocols, the systems diagrams, the step-by-step emergency procedures she had memorized years ago. The cabin was growing tense. Whispers turned into anxious chatter. A young mother clutched her child. A businessman muttered under his breath. The plane trembled slightly, banking against invisible turbulence. Clara's mind raced. She realized she could help. Quietly, she removed one earbud and leaned forward, scanning the cabin for the crew. This was no ordinary emergency. It required calm, precision, and expertise, all of which she had stored away, waiting for the moment she might never encounter. The flight attendants moved swiftly, their practiced professionalism masking unease. The captain's voice repeated over the intercom, but clarity faltered as the instruments blinked erratically. Passengers began to notice something was wrong beyond turbulence. The autopilot had failed, and the plane's controls were no longer responding predictably. Murmurs spread like wildfire. "Is the pilot okay? Why are the lights flashing?" Some passengers gripped their armrests in fear, while others whispered prayers. Clara watched closely, her own heart steadying her nerves. She had faced simulations of this exact scenario countless times. Emergency landings, system failures, and cockpit anomalies. She knew that panic was contagious. She could see it reflected in passengers' eyes, in the flight attendants' strained smiles, in the co-pilot's quick, shallow breaths. Clara rose slightly from her seat, signaling subtly to a nearby attendant, who hesitated, unsure of what she meant. "I can help," Clara said softly, confident but firm. The attendant's eyes widened. Then she nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. In row 18, the ordinary stranger was about to step into an extraordinary role. Clara approached the cockpit door, her steps deliberate. The co-pilot inside was struggling to stabilize the plane manually, sweat running down his temples. "We've lost autopilot functions," he muttered, hands flying over switches. Clara slid into the co-pilot's seat, voice calm but authoritative, step by step. Manual override, then throttle reset. "I'll guide you." The co-pilot froze, astonished. She scanned the panels, recalling every sequence from her engineering days, translating technical knowledge into actionable commands. Warning lights glowed red, but her composure anchored the cockpit. "Trim the plane slightly to port," "Adjust rudder for wind shear," she instructed. The co-pilot followed, surprised at how precise and clear her guidance was. Outside, sunlight filtered through storm clouds, casting dramatic shadows on the controls. Clara's calm presence began to ripple through the cabin. Passengers, still anxious, noticed subtle stabilization. The plane's shaking lessened, engines responding with steadier rhythm. Clara's eyes flicked between the instruments and the horizon visible through the windshield. One thought dominated her mind. This plane, these lives depend on focus, not fear. Minutes stretched into tense eternity. Clara's instructions guided the co-pilot through altitude adjustments, heading corrections, and manual navigation. Every subtle correction mattered. Outside, the storm began to break, shafts of sunlight piercing through gray clouds, illuminating the wing tips and control panels. She kept her voice calm over the intercom when she addressed the cabin. "We're adjusting for descent. Please remain seated. Everything is under control." Passengers held on her words, hearts steadied. The co-pilot glanced at her in awe. Her memory and skill had translated perfectly under pressure. Lightning flashed briefly, reflecting off the instruments, but Clara's composure never wavered. "Flaps 10 degrees, throttle steady," she murmured, guiding the plane toward the nearest airport. The runway lights emerged faintly below, the horizon golden. For the first time, the cabin felt relief trickle in. The ordinary woman in row 18 had become the stabilizing force, a beacon of calm in chaos. Her hands on the controls felt natural, as though she had never stopped doing this. The wheels touched the runway with a smooth, controlled jolt. Emergency crews lined the tarmac, lights flashing, but the passengers erupted in applause inside the cabin. Clara exhaled, hands still on the controls, tears glistening in her eyes. The co-pilot turned to her, gratitude and disbelief etched on his face. "I can't believe you did that." "Thank you." She smiled faintly, brushing back her hair. "Just doing what needed to be done," she said softly. The cabin crew and passengers approached, some with tears, some in stunned silence. News cameras outside captured the plane safely on the tarmac, but inside, the story was personal. Courage, calm, and expertise had saved the day. Clara returned to her seat in row 18, resuming her ordinary posture, her calm exterior once again hiding the extraordinary heroism of the past hour. Sunlight streamed through the cabin windows, bathing her in warmth. The ordinary stranger had become the hero of Flight 512, a story passengers would never forget.